What a delight to be in your midst. I am very delighted to be the keynote speaker at this gathering of very interesting and impressive people. I thought you would clap for yourselves. I am excited to keynote at this event because about 3 years ago, 2019, I was a Richard von Weizsäcker Fellow at the Robert Bosch Academy, and a dear friend who was running that program at the foundation made a meeting, scheduled a meeting for me to meet with Monica. Simone, were you at that meeting? I don't remember now. She was, yes. And that meeting was quite an interesting meeting. I was spending time figuring out the nexus between poor quality of politics and economic development. So what business did I have going to Bayer? It didn't make any sense to me at that time. But I had asked, as part of my program, that I would love to meet leaders within the private sector of the German economy, because when I was using Germany coming from absolute ruin of the end of the Second World War as a comparator to what happens in societies in countries like Africa, including the ones which have not even fought physical war, but you know that they almost are in post-conflict situation. And yet, you could see that following the end of the Second World War, Germany managed to get its politics together. And as it built from the base of citizens' participation, it ended up with the kind of institutions that emerged post-World War II, and then laid the stage for sound policies, especially sound economic policies, for vibrant institutions anchored on the rule of law, very important for projecting a sense of predictability and conveying what the incentives that would reward effort and what the sanctions that would punish bad behavior in this society are. And also it managed to get it right in terms of the important investment in public goods and services that you need in order for an environment to be a low-cost environment supporting effort. And so Germany, you would have thought, what kind of, model can it possibly be for Africa? But suddenly you could see that there were things to learn. And so I sat with Monica and co, and we were discussing things about economy. And we were discussing the role of the private sector in development. And we ended up discussing the issue of the private sector's role in supporting the emergence of ideas that solve social problems. So that's why I'm on this stage today, I suppose, or not. But you have me for the next about 12 minutes or thereabouts to say to you that if you gathered all of us and said, I have a problem. And we all say to you, what's your problem? And then you answered us and said, I am not happy with the German government. And we say, why are you not happy with the government? It hasn't solved my problem. And we say, what's the problem? And you say to us, it hasn't married a wife for me. We're all going to look at you and say, the German government marry a wife for you? How is that the problem of the government? Why would we ask you that question? Because we expect that you should know the skills of solving your private problem, of meeting a wholesome person and proposing marriage to them. So private problems don't require the same solutions as when somebody says to us, we live in a world that is increasingly unequal. A world where the opportunities for some segment of society to access all that it needs in order to thrive like all others is not the kind of world that you and I want to ignore. And so it pleases me that Bayer, understanding that not everyone is going to need their product, nor their services, yet recognizes that in communities today, we're leaving too many people behind. And that when the public sector, as in government, and the private sector, as in corporate world, cannot entirely solve the problems, we must begin to mobilize society to take a very important place in finding solutions to problems that we know can be solved. We increasingly realize that in order for us to solve the problems of the sustainable, that are expressed through the Sustainable Development Goals, 17 of them, we must act on the basis of partnership and collaboration. There is absolutely no basis to imagine that government alone, or private sector alone, or government and private sector alone can solve the problems. And that's why community solutions have become critical and very important. And community, whether in the form of territorial communities or in the form of ideas communities, so communities of practice, they've become very important. They've become important because the resources that solve problems are not just financial. Financial resources are important. But you know, when I was vice president at the World Bank in Washington, D.C., in charge of the Africa region operation, I turned the matter of resources on its head. Whereas people would immediately say that the most important resource we need, Madam Vice President, is funding. And I would say to them, no, that's not your most important resource that you need. The first most important resource you need is partnerships. Partnerships can unlock the world to you. What you're doing in this room today is leveraging partnerships. The cumulative IQ of the people and the reach and the connections that you have brought to this room today is unbelievable. I heard Stefan saying, if you find someone, or was it our moderator saying, you find someone you absolutely must talk to, please tell us to grab the person for you. How would you have met this person if not for this gathering? Partnership is an incredible leverage. And for that third part of society, the community, the non-governmental side of society, the non-corporate side of society, the ones that are the stewards of society, because that's what those who work in the non-government sector, the NGOs, the civil society, the CBOs, the community-based organizations, you are the stewards of society. The slicky politicians are being slicky in order to continue to have power. The corporate world are being smart in order to increase bottom line. But if you're someone who is interested in social enterprise, you're simply someone who, I hope, is not motivated by the same set of incentives. Your incentive is for social change. You're seeking solutions. You're building into new ideas to solve problems. You are an impatient optimist. Waited for so long for government to do it. Waited for so long for private sector to do it. And when they refuse to do it, you just picked yourself by the bootstrap and decided, we can do something about it. So your incentives, totally different. Totally different. And so there is this altruism that goes with why you're driving what you drive. Some of you could be doing better being on Wall Street, but you choose to earn miserable salaries just so that you can have sensible impact on the lives of other people. And so I welcome you to this event by saying to you that small is no longer beautiful. Small is no longer beautiful. We need scale. We need scale because in order to solve the SDGs, we must mobilize all the partnerships we can find. Because when we bring the partnerships together, we connect them as points of light. Then we can dramatically make a real difference in the lives of many more people. The second resource is knowledge. On knowledge, I have to say to you that there was a time when it was fashionable for scientists to be locked away in laboratories and to just speak to themselves in gobbledygook language that only they understood. But not anymore. We now know that the legitimacy of science is dependent on how science is received by those for whom it exists. And so with science, realizing that society expects a level of accountability and social responsiveness from it, it is now very normal for scientists to sit with us normal people. I haven't alluded to scientists not being normal. You thought about it yourself. I didn't say anything of that. But that fact is helping us in this world where Bayer operates to seeing that the accountability and responsibility of organizations like Bayer go beyond making pharmaceuticals, being interested in agricultural solutions, and just that for those that seek your services. So knowledge building, knowledge connections, knowledge distribution, knowledge assimilation, knowledge, just knowledge, and what it does for expanding the scope of ideas that are possible. That's a resource, a major resource. I was speaking to Shoshan from Israel earlier this morning. She was telling me the fantastic thing that she does in Africa, working in the field of access to seedlings with especially women farmers. Knowledge, the how to solve problems. That's who you are. What a great work you do. The final resource is, of course, finance. But see, my dear friends, when you have leveraged partnerships and leveraged knowledge, the amount of money you begin to need reduces. Do you get it? Because partnership brings with it a lot of strikeout of finance, right? some things that your partners would bring to the table would mean you don't need money. Knowledge tells you the more efficient way to solve the problems. It further reduces the amount of money you need. By the time you have used partnership and knowledge well, the amount of money you would need to solve problems begin to reduce. We must reduce the amount of money we need to solve problems, especially for the poor. The poor really need practical solutions. Those practical solutions are often social enterprise solutions. And the more that we can get enterprise into social, the better we are. Because the truth is that effectiveness and efficiency of solutions would require that we don't just get carried away and say we want to do good. We may destroy situations by just wanting to do good. The way to hell are paved with so many good intentions. That's not where we want to be. We must understand the efficiency and the discipline of enterprise, of market solutions. And that's why you're social innovators. Because you exist, we can at least be hopeful in a world that pushes us to want to be hopeless. I refuse to be hopeless. Because when I remember that there are people like you daily figuring out paths to solving all kinds of problems, especially the problems that connect to the theme of this year's annual program, harvesting health or a healthy future. I think that's what it is, harvesting a healthy future. How better to connect the world of agriculture to the world of health, to bring in the intersectorality of what it means to pursue development, but from a social enterprise perspective. May your road be rough.
So smallholder farmers may be the ones who produce the world's most food, but oftentimes they go hungry themselves. There's 60 million farmers in West Africa, and most of them live on $2 a day, and they're stuck in a vicious cycle of poverty. Now, West Africa has one of the largest growing populations, and it's actually the population that's growing the fastest in any other region in the world. Simultaneously, climate change is an ever-increasing problem, which exacerbates the situation of these farmers. This increases the urgency for food security and poverty reduction. There's 3 root causes that keep these farmers, particularly women, in a cycle of poverty. One of them is that farmers do not have accessible, affordable, safe options to save, and then later use their money they earn to invest. Formal savings accounts and credit are often inaccessible to these farmers. And cash on hand is at risk when the farmers keep it. It's at risk of theft, fire, or flood. Farmers lack access to quality inputs. They don't have the access to high agricultural materials such as seeds and fertilizer that are actually proven to increase their yields. Only 30% of female farmers in the world have access to these products during planting time. Now, another one is that farmers don't have access to any real good information or any viable agricultural practices that help them to offset climate change or to increase their harvest. Most of the tools that they have are outdated, they're not climate resilient, and it doesn't lead to any effective farming practices. The traditional financing solutions that are there for farmers, such as grants, subsidies, and credit, only meet 25% of the global need of smallholder farmers. Savings unlocks the potential of these farmers because it's money that they have in their pockets. And the solution that you might ask, well, MyAgro has pioneered a very innovative mobile layaway model that enables farmers to use their own money, their own resources to invest in high-quality seeds, fertilizer, tools that they need, and of course, agricultural training. This is to significantly increase their harvest and income for the first time, giving them a safe and reliable option to invest in their farms. Now, participating farmers enroll into MyAgro, and they buy a package. And this package they use the mobile layaway system to pay incrementally, little by little, they pay off this package. So by the time input delivery time comes, the package is paid off, and these farmers are able to access these quality inputs in time for the planting season. Now, MyAgro is an innovative layaway system that is in real time, transparent, reliable, and it's a way of farmers to invest their own money in their farms. MyAgro currently works with over 130,000 farmers, very similar to the farmer here, Aida, who's been a strong advocate for MyAgro for the last 8 years since she joined. She joined because MyAgro did a training in her village in Senegal, and she saw straight away the impact that this training was having on farmers. She became a strong advocate because she basically said, when I started using MyAgro, I pretty much doubled my harvest. Since then, she's been advocating MyAgro to all other farmers in her vicinity. Basically, what she quoted is, with MyAgro, you get a good product. She quotes here, we are suffering from a lack of rain during a rainy season, and it can impact the crops negatively. We know that the land needs some fertilizer, and MyAgro gives the best product. If you follow MyAgro advice, you will double what you get. So doubling the harvest is one of the main impacts that farmers have seen by using MyAgro. And at the same time, providing this incremental model that they can actually pay off MyAgro packages incrementally over the year. Now, Aida is a mother of 7 children, and at the same time, the increased harvest has provided her income so that she can invest in food security for her family and education. All but one of her children attends a private university and a private school. So this is a huge achievement for her. With the harvest grown, Aida does not have to worry about food. With the income, she can buy 2 sheep per year, and she can also invest in food security by having crops in storage like hibiscus, which she regularly uses to feed her family. Aida is a strong advocate and continues to be an advocate for MyAgro layaway model within her community. Now, the impact of MyAgro basically speaks for itself. Like I said, in 2021, the impact we've seen on average for all the farmers that we are interacting with, over 130,000. 176 have increased the food that they produced. We have seen 194 increase in income, which is a 13% increase year on year. Now, for most people, $197 might not seem a lot, but if you're a farmer living on less than $2 a day, this is almost a 30% increase in your income per year. And we have a huge social return on investment. For every dollar invested in MyAgro, we have a $1.85 return on investment. Now, this is a 28% increase year on year that we've seen. We're very happy to be partnering with Bayer Foundation and Bayer AG since 2017. Basically, together, we ensure food security and increased income for farmers across Mali and Senegal. Our founder and CEO, Anushka Ranayaki, is a member of the Sustainability Council. And our latest project with Bayer is extremely exciting. We're piloting a very innovative agroforestry project where we're offering farmers agroforestry packages to 1,000 farmers in Mali in 2022 with the ultimate goal of integrating carbon offsets. We believe that offering trees to farmers is one way of not only increasing their assets, but at the same time looking at a cost-effective way from removing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere to help tackle the ever-growing climate crisis. We conducted a study in Mali with 90 participants over 15 different areas in 3 different zones. And what we came to realize from this study is that there's a very high demand for agroforestry products. Actually, 100% of the farmers and participants that we interviewed, we realized that all of them were interested in an agroforestry package. Our farmers have a huge amount of experience as well. Each of them grow more than 10 trees and cultivate them. So they were very interested in acquiring new trees in the form of seedlings. The farmers have sufficient land as well to use. So every single farmer that we work with has anywhere between 1 to 10 hectares of land. Now, if MyAgro's North Star goal is to reach 1 million farmers by 2026, you can imagine the kind of impact that we have. We also noticed that moringa is an extremely promising option. Not only because through field trials we saw that moringa has an extremely good survival rate, it's transplanted easily, it's drought resistant, it's highly nutritious, and it has a low seeds price, so it's extremely accessible to farmers. So I was going to hand it over, but thank you very much everyone for the presentation.
Good morning, everybody. I'm not DigiFarm, I must say. Unfortunately, the CEO of DigiFarm had some visa problems, and were not allowed to enter Germany in time. Therefore, I want to present you something about DigiFarm, because business models are pretty much the same. But before I do that, I want to encourage you. You heard about moringa, and if you come to the World Cafe, you can actually taste it with me, because I have a couple of samples there. And MyAgro is actually working together with Hero Alliance in Mali, and they actually take off the produce from the farmers. So MyAgro is not only planting trees, MyAgro is actually facilitating with that a whole value chain. Yeah, so when we talk about, and how do I get back? Okay. When we talk about these business models, they are all pretty much the same, and basically you can't do. Everybody is looking basically for transformation, in the farming industry, like DigiFarm is doing as well. Everybody is looking to raise yield. DigiFarm is doing that, and to bring a better life to the farmer. There are certain differences in the business model, and I think this is also important. So MyAgro is looking on saving. DigiFarm is looking to another client base towards basically a lending situation. And if you look at DigiFarm is coming out of Safaricom, which is a telecommunication company in Kenya, and it's a digital platform that provides basically a one-stop shop for the farmer, from the inputs to basically the off-taking. And I think this is also important, that you have you're looking at a situation where you can access farmer through digital platforms. But later on, Rose will tell you that it's important, if you have a digital platform, that these guys can actually be connected. So the client base of the farmers are very much on a higher level there. And so like MyAgro here as well, You look at the end-to-end agricultural model where you profile the farmers, you look at the finance and inputs, you look at the production and harvesting, purchase of aggregators and sell, and you look also at demand aggregation. So DigiFarm as a platform, they have 101.6 million or 1.5 million registered users on their platform. But from the registered user to actually the active guys, it's also a difference. So 160,000 basically are actively interacting with them. So they are in 14 counties in Kenya. They work on 9 value chains. They make 4.3 million turnover. So this is these are the basis basically for Bayer Foundation also to look into this social enterprise. And what we learned is that data are important, and that's why Bayer Foundation and DigiFarm are looking into a potato value chain project. Potatoes are a very high-priced and high-value value chain in Kenya for smallholder farmers. On one hand, you can earn a lot, but you can also lose a lot as a smallholder farmer. So we better think we want to do that right, and we analyze that and bring components like smart farming, credit scoring, input, portfolio testing into that value chain, and try to optimize the value chain for the smallholder farmers together. And the important thing is that we can generate, a lot of data in terms of also, as I said, credibility, because credits is a big problem for smallholder farmers, but also, to get enough yield data over a long period of time. So when it comes to risk mitigation, it's important to have data. So basically, the farmers can be insured. And up until now, Rose, who follows me, she insures a lot of things, but she can't insure potatoes because the database is not there. So we start this in now, basically, with the funding of Bayer, and the plan is to reach initially something like 80,000 farmers, which is about half the base of the database, or the active participants in DigiFarm. And we believe that in the long term, this brings a lot of value to the smallholder farmers, but also brings a lot of value to Kenya, because potato is a very important staple crop in Kenya, and with the food situation at the moment, every staple crop you can produce internally is good, because you can save food security. So, as I said, my next speaker here, Rose, is showing you basically how data can, help to mitigate risk in the agricultural sector.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Rose Goslinga, and I'm the co-founder and president at Pula. And at Pula, we develop agriculture insurance. Now, mostly presentations like this will start their first slide with usually a picture of a woman. African woman, she is usually smiling, and these days she's often holding a mobile phone, right? Now, I sell insurance, and this is more likely the look we're about to get when you sell insurance to smallholder farmers. Smallholder farmers don't trust insurance companies. They think, let me wait and see, and somebody else can try this first. Or they'll think, and this is most common, I've managed all these years. Why would I spend money now? At Pula, we have managed to sell insurance to over 6 million farmers since our business started in 2015. We work in 16 countries, and we work in partnership, not just in partnership with the Bayer Foundation, but also in partnership with seed fertilizer companies, credit providers, governments, development agencies. On the one hand, they become the demand for the insurance. On the other hand, with insurance companies. By now, we work with 28 insurance companies across our markets and 24 reinsurance companies. People like Swiss Re, Hanover Re, Africa Re are our partners. In terms of impact in insurance is about claims and ability and willingness to pay. So on the one hand, we've been able to collect over $40 million worth of agriculture insurance premium, and we've paid worth $20 million in claims. Now, I was here 3 years ago in 2019, and as said, we are here amongst people who are all practitioners of social entrepreneurship. And I think given that we're amongst ourselves, we should be honest with ourselves about the practical realities of things that work and things that don't work. And to be honest, look, these are all big numbers. I can throw some other out. We've insured over $1 billion worth of agriculture inputs. But the reality is that the stuff that we do is hard, and you learn most from the things that don't work as much as from the things that work. So I'll talk a bit about the stuff that didn't work before I go into the stuff that worked. Because it's easy to talk about all the stuff, all the fun stuff, but I think you learn most amongst each other if you talk about the things openly that didn't. So when we started, we thought we could get input companies, seed and fertilizer companies, to pay for insurance through collection of data. We had a very smart system, extremely scalable. We would package every bag of seed or fertilizer, was one of our partners, together with kind of a sticker with a QR code, which a farmer would register their details, their location, and based on that, we could, using satellite data, monitor whether there was a drought and whether they'd lost their crop, and then we could replace their seed. Just in time, if they'd had a germination failure, for them to plant again. Problem was, the business model was reliant on data. So we would collect farmers' mobile number, variety, retailer, purchase date, planting date, number of bags. We had a ton of data, a lot of it. And I remember having this kind of heated debate about who owned that data. And going straight to the wire with a whole bunch of people at Bayer, do we own it? They own it. Honestly, data is only worth something if you do something with it. And what I realized that our business case became part of, and the way that we've survived, frankly, because we nearly went under, thinking this was our business case, right? One of the things in social entrepreneurship that you realize and that we hold very close at Pula is, opinions well debated but loosely held, so that you change your mind if things don't work out. Because it turned out the margins that these companies had really didn't work for just working for data. What really did work was the following. We ended up partnering together with governments. Governments embedding insurance with discounted inputs. In Zambia, the Ministry of Agriculture bundles insurance with something that they call the Farm Input Support Program. This is how it works. Effectively, a farmer is incentivized to pay an input package worth about $110. The government will subsidize about $94 of that. They contribute $22. Part of that $22 is a $6 insurance premium. Now, the insurance is effectively embedded in there because the government believes that, in case of a drought, of a flood, of pests, disease, locusts, all these risks that we cover, they should be able to go back to the farm. Would the farmer, voluntarily take up that insurance? Not necessarily. But would they want to get their seeds and fertilizers back when they've lost everything? Absolutely. And so by coming up with this kind of embedded package and pricing it into kind of their contribution, they've been able to scale that. Our recent work with the Bayer Foundation in partnership with Mercy Corps is to expand this approach to a program in Zimbabwe, which reaches over 2.6 million farmers in total. And it has measurable impact for the farmer because if you look at it, they pay $6. On average, our program in Zambia has paid out 3 times that $6 to those farmers, about between $18, $14, and $15. There are 26 such programs in Africa. We currently work with 2 of them. The third one will be the one in Zimbabwe, and it reaches 1.2 million farmers annually through such programs. I never thought when I started working in social entrepreneurship, I think we all go out there thinking that we'll work through, we will ourselves as organizations reach the farmers, or we will work in partnerships with businesses reaching the farmers. There was a third option that I was given, work with governments. I never thought that that was going to be my option, but I've learned that working with government can be a very successful and rewarding way to reach real substantive scale. I'll give you one more example. Working together with banks, embedding insurance with low-cost loans. In Nigeria, we work with the Central Bank of Nigeria to bundle insurance with unsecured loans. Unsecured loans means that you did not have to give your house, your land title to actually get access to this loan. Effectively, insurance became the securitization. The banks receive low-cost capital, 2%, are able to lend it on to farmers at 9%. This is really important because otherwise the commercial bank rate would be around 23%, which basically for a farmer is not something that they can actually afford. And since banks still carry about 50% of the credit risk, I'm sorry I'm so technical, but you guys can follow this, right? Yeah, good. I figured I had a smart audience today. So they carry 50% of the credit risk, and because of that, they require insurance to be there. Again, the impact is there. We have reached in 2020, there were 600,000 farmers under this program. We had a huge flood, paid out $7 million to farmers, on average 7 times their premium rate or their premium investment. Again, usually, if you'd had a flood like that, like we had in 2020, the following year, the bank lending would have literally dried up. The following year, they did reduce slightly, but they still were able to lend to over 500,000 farmers through this program. Sometimes I also think that, as you said, I loved the presentation from the minister before about, we could have decided to become, investment bankers. At Pula, we have actuaries, commercial managers, and they structure transactions that look like this, the one behind me. It's effectively syndicated financing. We work with the central bank, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 banks, producers associations, 11 insurers, and 5 reinsurers. Effectively developing scale, and I think social entrepreneurship is increasingly just as business-minded as any kind of investment banker would be, I would say, at least to structure this transaction, I would say. Look, where do we see organizations like Byron, and where do we see the future? From my perspective, organizations that are truly risk-taking should really look at how we can accelerate uptake of solutions like the one we do at Pula. For example, one of the things we see coming, I'm very proud to say that both DigiFarm and MyAgro are longtime customers of Pula, but we see that increasingly, development agencies, NGOs, humanitarian agencies are open towards solutions like insurance as a way to more structurally and more predictably finance their interventions. This sounds kind of weird, right? But disasters, as much as they're disasters, are incredibly predictable. At Pula, we actually look at maybe 30, 40 years of satellite data, and you know that Madagascar or Mozambique are going to be hit by cyclones. We know that countries like the Philippines or India, states like Orisha, will be hit by cyclones. The data just tells us that. What I think we should do, and as development agencies and people that work in development, is should make those disasters dull. Dull because we are prepared for them and we know what to do. So, for example, our insurance product here, what we're looking at is to see that effectively, if there's an insurance product, instead of a NGO spending, or spending a lot of time writing proposals, and we've talked to them, they'll say, once there's a disaster, we know that it's going to come, but we spend the first 2-3 weeks actually writing proposals to organizations to get money. Instead of that, we'd say, okay, well, look, organizations and development agencies should spend a small percentage of their money on insurance so that their an insurance payout can effectively scale up and pay for those first 2-3 weeks of response. Anyway, those are just some of our ideas. We think that that insurance and the solutions like this can really help and scale up interventions that development organizations make, and really grow their ability to respond. Now, I'm going to hand over to Julius. And before we started, Julius and I were talking about stuff. And I think this is why this meeting is there, so that we talk, right? So Julius is doing some really interesting work on health insurance, and he is getting the different partners. In insurance, the question is always who pays. So the first question I asked him, who pays for your insurance? And he taught me something. He's like, actually, the partners, the off-takers that we work with pay. And I was like, really? No, because I argued with those people that, they didn't have the margins. He says, oh, actually, do you have the margins? So I'm going to sit back later and get his numbers. At the same time, over to you, Julius.
Around 2 billion people in low and middle income countries have no access to comprehensive health coverage. And why is that so? Because most of the systems are still pen and paper based, so they're slow and error prone. They're geographically limited, and there's a very high business risk because of fraud. And we're convinced to solve these problems, one needs to use digital technology. And that's why we created Mtomadi. Mtomadi is Malagasy for healthy or strong, and it's a multi-payer platform that enables beneficiaries to connect to different types of health financing over a simple mobile phone. And if you don't have a mobile phone, even a SIM card will do. Mtomadi is the link that connects the different stakeholders in the health system, so that's payers. Rose was referring to that, so that's insurances, government programs, or donors, the healthcare providers, and the beneficiaries, the patients, over the existing mobile money infrastructure. And this is how it looks like in the field. So you see what's happening when a patient goes to a pharmacy, no worries. So, and files a claim. So the pharmacist would just have a look at the prescription, enter some data into the claim, and then send off the prescription for reimbursement. The whole process takes around 30 seconds. There's a claim adjudication process running in the background, and the facility gets reimbursed. And just by doing that, we were able to reduce the time that a facility usually needs to get reimbursed through an insurance from between 6 to 12 months to just a couple of hours. Where are we at? We launched in 2019. Today we have around 300,000 people on the platform, more than 80,000 claims paid, and 200 hospitals that are partnering. That makes us the largest digital health payment platform in Madagascar. What's our end game now? So who are the partners we're working with? It's these three. It's insurance providers, so we provide our technology so that insurance providers can digitize their key operations, that saves them costs. It's donors that can use our technology to reach the last mile, and we've seen a lot of this being used during COVID, so for restricted cash transfers or vouchers for health. And then it's public partners, so governments. In Madagascar, it's the health ministry that is building up a national health insurance scheme to reach the SDG of universal health coverage, and they use our backbone technology to do that. And with Bayer Foundation, we're really thankful for that. We were able to include in one of our donor programs farmers in the very remote south of Madagascar, which is the poorest region and also the region that's most affected by climate change. And maybe some of you have heard about the severe famine that was there just a year ago. Now, one case that we're particularly interested about, and Rose was referring to that one, I could imagine, is working with private businesses. And this is more or less come like a chance to us. We were approached by a Swiss chocolate manufacturer that sources cocoa for their chocolate in the north of Madagascar. We were able to ensure that the producers have access to healthcare, and in return, the company was able to get very granular data on the social and economic indicators of their farmers. And that was kind of an eye-opener for us, because the sourcing companies are on the lookout for more measurable impact data, and they need better data. And why is that so? Because the demand for ethical products is, or has increased drastically, one, and two, there's a whole world of new laws and regulations coming into place that requires companies to make sure that their supply chains are transparent and ethical. But the current solutions, so the current labels and certifications, they can't really do that job because they lack the direct connection to producers. So first, the data quality that they get is poor, and then secondly, they also lack to have social impact. And that's what made us create Elucid, right? Second company, we ensure producers access to healthcare, and in return, or while doing that, we provide easy and accurate, easily obtainable, timely and accurate data to the sourcing companies that pay for the healthcare of the producers. This illustrates the business model a little further. So an end consumer buys product from a healthy producer. The manufacturer buys the raw material from a sourcing company, just adds a little premium for healthcare, and then the sourcing company uses that premium to pay for healthcare of their producers through Elucid. And by doing that, we can get some extremely strong data, very meaningful data. So in addition to knowing, for example, what type of pills or treatments have been prescribed in a certain area or in one health facility, we can use data, for example, on diagnoses or procedures to calculate indicators like life years gained or the number of disability-adjusted life years reduced through a certain program. And that's what companies can use to feed into their sustainability or ESG reporting. This also goes beyond health, not our research, but this has other groups and research have thrown that access to healthcare has impact on 3 key areas. One, it's promoting gender equality because it enables women to take ownership over their own health. It has an effect on reducing child labor, and of course, it contributes to ending poverty, because if you protect people from medical impoverishment, voila, you reduce poverty. Is this the right time? Absolutely, for 2 reasons. One is the consumer demand has and is growing significantly. So in Germany alone, the demand for ethically sourced product has increased tenfold over the last 10 years. At the same time, so this is really between 2021 and 2024, there's all these new regulations in the EU and in the US markets coming online. It's laws and regulations that really are total game changer for these companies. If you imagine just 5 years ago, it was okay if you certified 5% of your supply chain and made sure it's ethically sound and transparent. You have to do this for 100% now, and if you don't, you might end up that your product is just kept in a container in port until you can prove that, for example, there was no forced labor involved in producing that product. All right, so this wouldn't be possible without a wonderful team, a team I'm super happy to work with every day, a team that's based in Madagascar, Germany, and Ghana. And I'm also very thankful to my co-founders. Elsa is currently in Madagascar, can't be here. Samuel, he's going to be on a panel tomorrow. You're going to meet him. Together we share a vision that together we can change the future of global supply chains to benefit all, and that creates a win-win-win. So for producers, they can access healthcare. For sourcing companies, they have measurable impact and they have data that they can feed into their reporting to comply with the requirements. And then for the consumers, they can be sure that they buy products from healthy producers. Thank you very much. Looking forward to be talking to you today or tomorrow. And back to you, Anjan.